Hi, welcome to the brick and mortar site for the development of the NAVS regulatory education e-learning. Here I am in northern Michigan, not quite the Upper Peninsula, but near the Mackinac Bridge. So I'm not a Yooper yet. The leaves are absolutely beautiful. I'm looking out my window at Lake Michigan, and I wish that we were all together to do this in person, but we'll make the best of it, and I'm hoping you will enjoy the presentation today. Thank you for joining for this session that's brought to you by the great staff at NAVS. I'm Nancy Higley. I have been in research, scientific affairs, regulatory affairs for many years at consumer products goods company and flavor companies. Many of you know me, and then some of you are new colleagues that I'm starting to meet through our e-learning that we're leveraging regulatory education anywhere, anytime through e-learning, brought to you by your NAFS Education Committee. So I'm going to get right to it so that you don't have to watch my mug the whole time. I'm actually going to give this presentation by way of a tool that is an e-learning tool. I'm going to share it right now. There you go. And instead of doing straight PowerPoint, I'm going to I put this presentation into an e-learning tool, one of the top 5 that are out there, called Articulate. And with most e-learning tools, they usually tell you how long it's going to take. So we expect this presentation to be about 35 minutes long. And so let's just start the course. And you can play along, you can hit the buttons when I hit them, and you can be somewhat virtually interactive. That's great. Let's have fun together, even though we're not, together talking. All right, let me put my glasses on a little bit here. So this all started probably at the end of last year. The Education Committee, which I am going to point out right away, is made up of Aaron Jordan from NAFS, Dolph D. Rovero, Joanne Ferrara, and Richie Pisano Jr. And in February, after we had talked a bit, this committee, we presented a regulatory e-learning proposal to the board. And it's based on market analysis for regulatory education in the food and food ingredients industry space. And just like any e-learning, you can hit the continue button. So what is e-learning? And the way I look at e-learning, it's one part of a 3-legged stool. It's not a be-all and end-all. It is part of instructor-led courses and a part of on-job training. E-learning is based in formalized teaching. It just uses the help of electronic tools. But it's not a standalone, but it sure can be a great substitute for a lot of the things that we're used to doing in a classroom or by PowerPoint, etc. As you could imagine, there's a fair amount of science but behind effective e-learning, just like there is with other kinds of education. Believe it or not, there's courses in colors you can use, fonts, contrast, fonts that are compatible with each other, shapes, etc. But in general, let's just get to the chase here. There is always a better understanding of what is being taught when a person can read the text, can listen to the information, they look at images that back up what they're reading, and they can practice what's been learned. E-learning provides a great value for people who want to go at their own pace. They can review the content, they can repeat things, they can go back and forth and look at the exercise again. The other advantage is that we've had a lot of rapid technological developments that have brought us into the digital and mobile era. And users can change their preferences, and the millennial generation coming into the job market, they have prompted the needs for organizations to choose multi-device compatible learning. And by choosing some of these tools in the NAFS program, I can show you what this looks like in this tool. So we're looking at a presentation or e-learning, however you want to look at it in this case, through a desktop landscape. But I can click up here and I can go to a tablet. And a tablet portrait mode, you can see what it looks like. Here is a tablet landscape. Here's a mobile device. And here's the mobile device landscape. Now, one of the things, if you notice, when we went into a couple of these, the contents change, and you've got what is people are used to seeing is these 3 lines. So you can use tools and click things that you're used to in these mobile e-learning. So it makes it more acceptable to people that are a little bit more technical savvy and used to using other devices. But let's, for us, go back to the desktop because that's what I'm operating off of today. So you might say, okay, what's the transition to e-learning? Is it difficult for some of us older people here? And the answer is no. It's relatively straightforward. Almost everyone who has used a computer has completed some kind of an e-learning type activity. Maybe it was called web-based training. It could have been called online learning or computer-based training, but it's all under the same umbrella. So what does this change? In 2015, Forbes made a comment that e-learning is the future. Traditional educational approaches like college, universities, in addition to corporate training departments, are embracing the digital reality. Wow, did they even anticipate what has hit us this year? And indeed, Forbes in 2020 said, the state of education was already morphing into something new and exciting long before 2020, but this year seems to be the year the e-learning industry is really flexing its muscles. And you've seen it. And you'll see it when you start to write, some of this e-learning. You'll see all kinds of tools that are popping up. And there's a lot of courses out there that help people who are writing e-learning to learn a lot more. So just like any e-learning, I can hit the continue button and we can go to the next lesson. By the way, on the contents, if you're doing an e-learning, you can see where you've been, you can see where you're going to go. So what's the value proposition in doing an e-learning? This is something that we presented to the NAVS board in February. It can save on costs. E-learning can save on costs. And in the olden days, when we would have people come in and give courses in our corporate headquarters, or we would send people to courses, those days are somewhat gone, as we all know. But even back then, if you were to send somebody to a course or bring an instructor in, you had cost incurred with hotels, with travel, with transportation, food, hotels, complimentary materials like books, folders, thumb drives, whatever. E-learning helps you manage your funds against learning more economically because you don't have to do that type of thing. So when looking at the training industry reports, research and market forecasts in Forbes, I've got some numbers to share with you. And along with sharing this with you, I'm going to show you one of the types of activities one can do in an e-learning mode. This is an interaction. So this is a case where I've got 3 or 4 statements, and you just need to figure out if the statement is true or false, and you move the flashcard to whichever it is. And notice I've done something down here that says this will turn into a continue, but you can't continue until you've repeated everything. So it makes it kind of fun. This is what's called a non-graded interaction. E-learning reached 107 billion in 2015. Do you think that's correct? I do, because I know the answer. And the answer is true. Okay, by 2023, will 77% of US companies offer professional development? Wow, that sounds a little high. I'm going to say false. No, the answer is true. Notice how it made me go back, and I'm putting it there, and it's checking it off. I still can't go forward. I haven't finished everything. Research and market forecasts show e-learning will grow to 325 billion by 2025. That is a true statement. In 2019, US total training expenditures was 83 billion. That again is a true statement. So all the statements were true. Notice I finished everything. I can hit the continue button. I can also go back and replay that if I want to check those numbers again. Let's go on. Benefits of e-learning. This is an example also of an interaction. It's called a tab interaction. Again, I'm scroll down. I will show you. You have to complete the contents before moving on. So I have about 5 of them here, these tabs. Let's go through them. One of the benefits of e-learning is immediacy. Once the course is developed and you place it on the distribution platform, which is typically called a learning management system, it's available right away. Those people who have been assigned that course can have it available to them immediately. They can transform it into a daily consultancy tool. They can know it's out there, and they can go back and refer to it if a question comes up. Standardization. The users, regardless of where they are, what time zone they're in, where they are located, they have access to quality content. So that means you're not sending things over the internet or over email, and all of a sudden somebody makes a change and there's versions of it everywhere. I call this one version of the truth or one version of the training. So you have control over the content. Updates. The course can be easily modified and adapted to changes, be it, in a short amount of time. You can look at it every year, you can look at it months, even weeks, and I'll give you a perfect example. Erin and I were ready to put onto the NAVS site the availability of the Gluten-Free Claims USA. And when I sent her the note saying it was ready, and she was about ready to advertise it, doggone it if the US FDA didn't come up with their final rule on how to look at gluten-free for hydrolyzed products. And so, but easily, I went into the e-learning for the Gluten-Free USA. I looked for everywhere where I had said that the hydrolyzed products was pending, and I updated it right away, sent her a note and said, we're ready to go. Took me less than a day, maybe it took me 2 hours tops to fix it. So you can fix things and make an update very easily. Interactivity. Well, we're seeing that with this presentation. People love to touch things. We're not passive human beings. We like to receive the information. We like to practice. We like to analyze the data. So e-learnings are very interactive. The final one that I picked out was what's called asynchrony. Asynchrony is an odd word, but the word, what it means is you don't have to synchronize everything, shut down, your department, send people to a training, or shut down a training to say, we have a webinar at this time. Everybody needs to stop what they're doing, go take this webinar. You're not intruding on everyday tasks. The workers can do it at their own pace. So it is not synchronized, but it is asynchrony, which is really helpful for when you have, if I take regulatory people, not just regulatory, but everybody is busy. How can they fit this in around their own schedule and it's not rigid? So why regulatory training? Well, a lot of this has to do with the fact that I'm very passionate about it. But what is the advantages of a regulatory training? I have always had the position that a knowledgeable regulatory professional can be a point of difference for your company. In the food, beverage, and flavor industry, navigating and understanding the regulations is critical to the success of your business. If you partner with your regulatory people up front and they're knowledgeable, I believe that your first pass yield, that is, you don't have to go back and repeat things as often, is already into the equation. They're there with you, they're knowledgeable, you're doing it right the first time. I do think that in this time and budget constraints that regulatory continuous education has been suffered. In addition, to social distancing has hampered travel and in-person events. So we have a void, and we need to look at novel ways to connect and continue our education efforts. I think that training, no matter where it is in a company, but let's pick on regulatory training, translates into high-end workers who, with the right motivational tools, will provide optimum performance. This in itself translates into customers or users that are satisfied and they're going to remain loyal to your company, guaranteeing its productivity and growth. And again, I believe it to be a significant point of difference for your company if you have trained regulatory professionals. So what does the market analysis look like? And again, we gave this to the NAVS board. And outside of standard training that's required, like, sexual harassment, NAVS, not NAVS, sorry, OSHA, lockout, tagout. There's trainings out there, but they're pretty sparse. So I made a table of micro learning opportunities, and micro learning is what can you learn in 15 minutes? Ebooks, interactive e-learning, which is what we're talking about today, online courses or webinars, in-person trainings, and certifications. By far, the pharmaceutical industry has more training options available than the food ingredient, and flavor sector. I use the term ebook a little bit loosely because those are, for the most part, PowerPoints that you just can download, pay for, download, and click on them. They're not very interactive, but they're out there. Anywhere from $5 for a simple one to over $100. Webinars, we're seeing a lot of webinars now, and they're anywhere from $99 to, $700 and some if you're like a pharmaceutical non-member. I've seen the cost can vary. They're usually an hour, and a lot of them they're synchronous. You got to take people away from their day-to-day activity, and they need to stop, do what they're doing, and take a webinar. In-person training, which is not as frequent anymore, but those are quite costly. I mean, even without the travel and the hotel and the time away from work, they can range up to $1,600 plus for a 2-day class. And outside of some universities, only the pharmaceutical industry that I could find actually has certifications in the regulatory space. So what did that mean when you look at this? We have a big white space meaning opportunity. We have an opportunity for education in the micro-learning and e-learning space. And with COVID-19 pandemic, many training teams have had to scrap what they're called blended learning programs, which is learning programs of PowerPoints plus instructor plus webinars. And they have scrapped them in favor of e-learning. And one of the things that you're seeing a lot with e-learning tools is the ability to efficiently take hundreds of PowerPoint slides that were previously used for classrooms and put them into these marvelous e-learning tools. And the tool that I'm using today, as I've been able to take some of my PowerPoints and put them into an e-learning platform. I mean, you need to add things to it like quizzes and the interactions, but you can take the bulk of what you already have and put them into these tools. So it's very easy now to transition from all those wonderful PowerPoint classroom slides that you have and put them into an e-learning tool and make them interactive. So the education team looked at a couple of things, and this is another education. They looked at the gaps, and 3 major gaps to recap. None or minimal interactive e-learning for in-depth food regulatory courses. None or minimal micro-learning for regulatory courses. And increased travel restrictions has stalled training on regulatory topics. So the solution, one of the solutions, but the solutions we've come up with is use authoring tools and learning management systems to develop and deliver courses for the regulatory professional. What we also have determined is that there's additional uses of storyboards to develop and deliver micro-learning as regulatory for the non-regulatory. Let me back up a minute and explain to you the process of making an e-learning. Usually you have a subject matter expert who researches the subject, and they create what's called a storyboard. Sometimes people go straight to the system and write their storyboard of which is the content. I tend to collect all my information and put it in sections, and then I'll look at it and say, oh, what graphic do I want? Where do I want a quiz? What might the quiz look like? But it's all the planning, it's all the information. And boy, do I have fun doing storyboards, because I like to go out and find things that not even I knew, and that makes it fun for me as well. And I like to put in ringers that make it fun for anybody, for the most part, who is even a seasoned regulatory professional. But once you make the storyboard, then you can turn it over to someone who understands the authoring tool. So in this case, I tend to be both. I'm the storyboard developer, and I also am using authoring tools. For example, the one I'm showing you today called Articulate. That puts the material into a tool. And then after that, you have to have a way to deploy it. And that's what's called the learning management system. And so there's three pieces to it. And one of the things what we've determined is that I can take that same lengthy storyboard on the subject and I can make a smaller 15-minute micro learning. And I call that regulatory for the non-regulatory. And this is particularly helpful for an organization like NAVS, who has a wide variety of people that attend the meetings and expertise. You might have regulatory professionals, but you might have people that want to know a little bit of the subject, just so that they're ahead of the game when they're talking to their clients and their customers, or even internally. The third thing is that we can develop e-learning to augment webinars and in-person trainings. What do I mean by that? If you have a webinar, you tend to have a fair number of people that are of different expertise joining that webinar. And an e-learning can be used to what I'm going to call level the playing field. Give everybody an opportunity to get up the baseline information so when they enter this webinar, they are well prepared, and then you can use your webinars for more advanced information. So those are some of the reasons e-learning offers a solution. Now let's get into the fun of it. Expand your training arsenal. That is what NAVS is bringing to you. So my logo in the middle, RegulatoryBytes, which is soon to be trademarked, I'm to the last stages of trademarking it, is based on 6 modules. And each module is planned to have foundational / core courses, intermediate, and advanced. But right now we're in the foundational stage. But you can see there's 6 types of courses: ingredient approval, ingredient product labeling, certifications, product claims, international compliance, nutrition, labeling and nutrition claims, and specialized expertise. And they're all color coded because that's what Nancy does. And to give you an idea, we have it staged, and you can see by the color codes what's going to come out. I had a pretty aggressive schedule, but we're starting a little bit slow, but we already had food grade, which is ingredient approval. Gluten-free USA claims came out recently. That is in the claims. On tap, I have the nutrition facts label, which is very timely for the smaller companies because by January 1 of 2021, everybody has to be changed over to the new nutrition facts label. Sulfites is relatively done. A lot of these I already have in some form or another. Now, one of the things the education committee can do is if we think something needs to be moved up in the line, we can move it up a little bit. But they're all in different states of being completed. And then we got some that are moving out into next year for sure. Those are more the specialized things like Tox 101, Drug Master File, depending on the interest. So we have a lot of these modules planned. So let me talk to you about, and I'm going to move my picture aside. Let me talk to you about the NAVS. I mentioned earlier that NAVS is very unique. They have a unique number of expertise in there, and they're not all regulatory expertise. And so we tried to make a training tool that would be usable by such a diverse audience. And so this is the NAVS dashboard. And the NAVS dashboard, and this is specific, for example, for food grade, but it's the same dashboard, and it will be for all of them. First of all, let me point out again your wonderful education committee, and their titles and their contacts will be on every NAVS dashboard. But let's go one by one. On your dashboard, you're going to have objectives. Every e-learning course should have objectives. What are you expected that you're going to learn? And hopefully it will trigger you to say, yes, I want to know more. Second, micro learning. This is your micro learning section. Again, I took the NAVS storyboard for that subject And I have made them into small lessons, no more than 15 minutes total. There's either 4 or 5 lessons, and all you need to do is click on the link and you'll go to that section of the course, of the NAF course, and you can read all about it. Each one of these sections is either 1 slide or 2 slides. So it's very quick, and it's the top line. What do I need to know about food grade? The next part of this is really what, in my mind, I built these on, and it's called the Regulatory Professional Development. It's called RegulatoryBytes. If you click onto this icon, or later on, you can also get to it that way, you will get taken to the Regulatory Professional Development Plan. And if you click on the hot link, you will be taken to about a 30-minute in-depth regulatory course on the subject. It's got all the bells and whistles of, what you're used to next, how many slides it is. I've got interactions in it. I have knowledge quizzes in it. So you can have a pre-knowledge quiz, which is not towards your certification, but I have a knowledge check at the end. I try to make it engaging. This is the look right now. I'm modifying some as I move into this newer software I'm working on to make it more fresh and not feel like necessarily always like PowerPoint, give you a little bit more flexibility, but it's the same idea. And inside here, hopefully, is everything that you need to know in depth about food grade in the USA. The next part of the dashboard is this ebook. One thing that we talked about that I think is really important for both regulatory people and non-regulatory people is execution and practicality. So I'm using an ebook tool to and again, if you click on it, you'll go to a part in the presentation, click on the LMS ebook, and you're going to get to something that looks like this. This happens to be the title of contents page for the ingredients and ingredient approval topics, and this is for food grade. There's about 10 pages in here for food grade, and it will give you a super, super brief summary of the guiding principles, definitions. But one of the things I try to do for each one of these, if I can, is make a decision tree. Those of you who know me know I learned well from FEMA and under the mentorship of Dick Hall to do decision trees. I love decision trees. So if I can make you a practical execution decision tree, I will do so. At least it's my read on how you might approach it. You can always add your own to it, but it's a starting place for you. This is the practical execution of the topic. And as new topics are entered into that module, I will, for every time we launch a module, I will add that topic to this table of contents. So you'll always have it. You can go back to it whenever you want. The last piece is the resources and links. Again, if you click on it, you'll be taken to the page, click on it, and you're going to go to another ebook. And inside the ebook, I will start developing all the references and links for each one of the modules and courses that we're talking about. And the reason I did this is, I don't know about you guys, but it drives me absolutely loony when I click on a link and it's dead. And I didn't want to put all these links into each one of the e-learning modules because it'd be a lot to maintain. So I'm putting them in one place, and periodically I'm going to go through, I'm going to click on them and make sure they're still active. So you're always getting active links for some major resources. The other thing we intended to do, because we talked about this a bit and got feedback from the board, is if out there's another course on the subject that we all think is a great reference for you all, we're going to put it in here. So let's say, for example, we're working on labeling or something, and FEMA has a course in flavor labeling. And if they give us permission and they want us to, I will put in course. FEMA would be the source, and then whatever reference it is to contact them to take the course. So we don't want to duplicate any courses. We want to make this unique, but we also want to say, wow, by the way, this organization has a great course that you might be interested in it. Now, we're not endorsing all these courses, But if we think there's one that would be complement what we're already doing, we would love to put it in here. So that's the idea for references and resources. So there you have it. This is what NAVS offers you, is a dashboard to, to meet, hopefully, the wide variety of needs you might have in training. So let's go on to the next. Continue. So once it's written, it needs to get into the learning management system so it can be delivered to you. So it's a platform. There's the authoring tool, which we've been looking at, and now there's the platform. I use a tool called iSpring Learn. And every time the first time you enroll in a class, you will get enrolled into iSpring Learn, and you're going to get your own personal porter, your own personal password. This is for you alone and nobody else. And when you subscribe to your first course, you're going to get an invite, and it's from regconnections.ispringlearn.com training. I apologize for that, but I can't change that. But don't junk me, don't spam me, save me, look for me, because that is how you get into the courses. And you'll get an invite that says, welcome. Not really, but it says it's invited you to access the tool, and it helps. And then we say, we want you to start your journey in e-learning with us. That will happen once when you get the tool. Second thing, let's look at this. You will have your own profile. So you have the ability to adjust your profile. You can look at your accomplishments. You can look at your badges. You can look at your learning history. As long as you're a subscriber in at least one NAVS course, you can come into the system as many times as you want. On your personal dashboard, you'll have my courses. You'll have the assigned courses. Every time you subscribe to a course, you will receive an email, again, from regconnections.ispringlearn.com training. And that's why you don't junk me or spam me. And it'll say, you've been assigned the course. It'll tell you which course. To view the course, follow the link. You'll get a link. Go for it. You can also look in here for those courses. One of the things we've done is we have not given things due dates. If we were doing formalized training for companies and clients, would say, okay, you have till, January 1st to finish this course. We're not doing this. These are open. You can go back. As long as you subscribe once, you can keep going back. A couple other things you're going to see is something called My Trainings. We have not invoked that yet, but a training is a way to make a system where it's a calendar of events, so to speak, and you can link things to a webinar and Zoom out of here. Something the education committee needs to talk about, whether we want to do something like that in the future. And the other thing that I've left open, but it's not got anything in it right now, is what's called regulatory knowledge base or knowledge base. And a knowledge base is designed to hold training materials always available to the users. We haven't thought yet about what kind of things might go in there, but that's something that we could open up at some point. So there you have it. That is what your portal will look like when you join. Again, don't let me go into spam, please. The other thing we've done is gamify things. The human psyche loves to have competition. And even if you're competing against yourself, we have a predisposition towards gaming. So what we've done is we've created points. So if you get through the original NAVS, which would be the micro-learning to the end, so that would be on the left side of the dashboard, you'll get 10 points. If you go to the RegulatoryBytes and you go all the way through the regulatory professional development and you pass the quiz, you need 70% to pass the quiz, you'll get 50 points. And I've set it up where there's badges. So for example, you get 10 points. The first 10 points, you're going to get a liftoff badge. Just things to make it fun. And then the other thing we've done is we've made it giving you certificates. If you make it through the NAVS micro-learning to the end, you can get a NAVS certificate for that course. And if you also do the RegulatoryBytes, regulatory professional training all the way to the end and pass it, you'll get a RegulatoryBytes completion certificate. So there's badges and there's certificates, and you can watch your accomplishments. So that brings us to the end. I want to tell you that we continue to improve and build the courses to meet your needs. I mentioned I'm moving to a new e-learning software to answer the overhaul appeal of courses. I take courses in e-learning to keep current with the best practices. And I had somebody I reported to a few years ago, that every time we talked about regulatory, this person would say, "Oh, Nancy, fascinating." Well, guess what? I think we can make it fascinating. We can at least make it a little bit of fun to learn it along the way. So I want to thank you for your time today. I wish we were all together in person. I could let you touch things and interact yourself and give me feedback in person. But I'm glad to have had the opportunity to do this with you today. Thanks a lot. And I think we're going to be going to Zoom for questions. Take care. Talk soon. Bye.